There is this a specific type of exhaustion that I think everyone feels at some point, but we rarely have the right words for it. It's not the I ran a 5K tired.
Right.
It's not even the I stayed up all night working tired. It's more of an existential heaviness. It's the feeling that you are just, dense. Like gravity is pulling on you specifically, just a little bit harder than everyone else.
That is actually a profound place to start. It's what the mystics might call spiritual inertia, the sensation that the soul is just dragging a lot of extra weight around.
Exactly, inertia. And the reason I bring this up today is that our deep dive is centered entirely on a text that doesn't just acknowledge that feeling, it actually turns it into a physics problem. We're looking at a composition that uses the metaphor of a sinking stone to explain the human condition.
It's a very visceral image. We're diving into a specific shabad, or hymn, from the Sikh tradition. It's written by the fourth Mehla, Guru Ram Das Ji, and it's set in a musical measure known as Rag Dhanaasaree.
And before we get to the stone and the sinking part, I want to set the stage a bit for you listening. We've got this specific musical context, Rag Dhanaasaree, and it's from a section with a specific structure called Chau-Padhay, specifically ghar 1. So, for someone who isn't a scholar of these texts, what are we actually looking at here? Why does this structure even matter?
So Chau-Padhay literally translates to 4 verses. It's a very compact, punchy structure. It's designed to take the listener on a complete arc, going from a problem to a solution in a very short span. It doesn't meander at all. And the rag, the musical mode, is really crucial context here.
Right, because these aren't just poems on a page. They're lyrics designed to be sung in a very specific emotional key.
Precisely. Rag Dhanaasaree is traditionally performed in the afternoon, and it carries this mood of reassurance. Imagine a child who's been lost in a crowd, panic is rising, and then suddenly they spot their parent. That specific wash of relief, that is Dhanaasaree. It's a cry for help, but it's a cry made with the underlying knowledge that help is actually already there.
Which is really interesting because the text starts in a pretty dark place. It doesn't start with the relief, it starts with the crisis. And our mission for this deep dive is to decode this 4-part journey, going from the crisis of being a sinking stone to the alchemy of the fire, and finally, the perfect medicine.
And alchemy is really the perfect word for it. We're going to see how base, metal-like, heavy, rusted metal gets turned into gold.
Let's jump right into the deep end then, verse 1. The opening line is startlingly direct. The original text is Ham Papi Pathar near Duba, which translates to, we are sinners, sinking like stones in water.
It really doesn't pull any punches. It establishes the stakes immediately.
It really doesn't. But I want to pause on this word sinner, or papi, because in a Western context, sin usually implies a crime, right? You broke a rule, now you're guilty, now you're in trouble with the judge. Is that the framework here? Are we looking at a courtroom drama?
No, and that is a very common misconception. In this philosophical framework, sin isn't necessarily about legalistic guilt or breaking a rule book. It's about separation. It's about misalignment. Just look at the metaphor the guru uses, pathar, stone. The focus isn't on the stone being evil or immoral. The focus is on the stone's physical properties.
The physics of it.
Exactly. What is the fundamental nature of a stone? It's dense, it's hard, and most importantly, it has absolutely zero buoyancy. If you drop a stone in a lake, it doesn't sink because it's being punished. It sinks because that is its nature. It implies a state of just being weighed down.
So when the text says, we are sinners sinking like stones, it's describing a state of being weighed down by the ego. The ego is the density.
Precisely. The I is heavy. The more you are wrapped up in I am the doer, I am separate, I am in control, the denser you become. And in the text, the water is referred to as the near, which is often symbolic of the world ocean, the pavjal. In the fluid, overwhelming ocean of existence, density is fatal. You just sink.
And here is where the text completely flips the script on typical self-help advice. Usually, if you tell someone you're sinking, the advice is, kick harder, learn to swim, manifest buoyancy.
Right. Pull yourself up by your bootstraps. Try harder.
But the stone can't kick.
No. A stone cannot learn to swim. It is contrary to its structural nature. And that is the pivot in the second half of the verse. Kar kirapaa pakan ham tari. Grant your grace and carry us stones across.
Tari. That means to ferry across, right?
Yes. And notice the agency here. The stone isn't asking for swimming lessons. It isn't asking for an instruction manual on how to be a boat. It's asking to be carried. It's a total surrender of agency. It's an admission that my effort alone cannot solve this problem because my effort is generated by the very ego that is weighing me down in the first place.
That is a massive paradox. If I try to save myself, I'm just adding more I to the equation, which makes me heavier.
Exactly. You can't lift yourself up by your own bucket handle. The text is saying that the only way for a stone to float is if it is supported by something else, something with infinite buoyancy. That is the request for grace.
There's another line in this opening section that really struck me as almost brutally honest. The speaker says, Hargun ke na sakal banavare. I cannot even speak the praises of the Lord.
It is such a beautiful line.
But it's so counterintuitive. Usually, religious texts are full of people praising. Here, the opening bit is, I can't even get the words out. I don't even know how to do this.
Think about the authenticity of that, though. If you are drowning, truly drowning, you don't recite poetry, you gasp. This admission, I am so heavy, so dense, that I can't even perform the ritual of praise correctly, is actually the highest form of prayer. It's the empty cup principle we talk about often.
Because you aren't faking it, you aren't putting on a show.
You aren't pretending to be a good swimmer, you're admitting you're a stone. And grace flows into the lowest places. By admitting your incapacity, you create the vacuum that draws grace in. It's the ultimate humility.
So we've established the condition. We are stones. We are sinking in the ocean of the world because of our density. We need to be carried. But the text then shifts gears in verse 2 to explain why we are like this. We aren't just stones, we are dirty stones.
Rusty stones, this is where the imagery gets metallurgical. We move from physics to chemistry. Verse 2 says, Janam janam kalaji bik maracha.
The rust of poison and corruption from countless incarnations sticks to us. Okay, let's unpack maracha. Rust. This feels like a very specific choice of word. Why rust and not just mud or dirt?
It's a critical distinction. Dirt sits on the surface. You can wipe dirt off with a wet cloth. Rust is different. Rust is what happens when the metal itself reacts with the environment. It's oxidation. It eats into the integrity of the material. It bonds with the metal.
And it takes time. Rust doesn't happen in 5 minutes.
That's the key. The text says janam, birth after birth. The text is suggesting that our heaviness isn't just about what you did last Tuesday or a mistake you made 10 years ago. It's conditioning. It's layers of patterns, habits, and reactions that have accumulated over lifetimes.
That implies that the original metal, the soul or the conscience, is actually buried under layers of this corrosive crust. We don't even know what we look like underneath it.
We've become the rust. We identify with the corrosion, not the gold underneath.
So if I'm a rusty stone or a rusty lump of iron, how do I get clean? You can't just wish rust away. The text gives a prescription, and it involves the Sangat.
Yes. By the grace of the true guru, Satigur Prasaadh, it says, Lag Sangat Sad Savari. Joining the Sad Sangat, the company of the holy, it is cleaned away.
Now, stop me if I'm being cynical, but company of the holy usually conjures up images of polite tea parties or people sitting in quiet rows nodding their heads. But the analogy the guru uses next is, well, it's violent.
It is intense. Jau Kanchan by Santar Tayo, like gold heated in the fire.
Fire by Santar. So the Sangat isn't a warm blanket or a social club, it's a furnace.
This is a crucial distinction that I think a lot of people miss. We go to spiritual communities looking for comfort. We want to be validated. We want people to tell us we're doing great. But Guru Ram Das Ji is saying, no, if you want to get rid of rust that has been accumulating for lifetimes, you don't need a soft cloth. You need fire.
Explain that process. How is a community of people of fire?
Think about what happens in a high-integrity environment. When you're around people who are truly disciplined, who are truly seeking the truth, your own rust becomes immediately visible. It's uncomfortable.
Right. If I'm arrogant and I walk into a room of truly humble people, my arrogance stands out like a sore thumb. It burns. I feel the heat of the contrast.
Exactly. The heat of the Sangat is the friction of truth. It challenges your ego. It melts down your defenses. When gold is putting fire, the heat separates the impurities from the pure metal. The impurities, the mal rise to the top and are skimmed off.
So the fire isn't there to destroy the gold.
No, the goldsmith loves the gold. He burns it because he values it. He wants to save it from the dross. The fire is an act of love, even if it feels like destruction to the rest.
That reframes the entire experience of judgment or discomfort in spiritual spaces. If you feel heat, maybe it's working.
If you're comfortable, you probably aren't growing. If you're being heated, the rust is falling off. The text actually says, Malkati katit altari, the filth is cut and removed.
Okay, so we've gone from the water, the sinking, to the fire, the purifying. Now we move to verse 3, which introduces the medicine.
Okay.
Harokad Jagpura. The name of the Lord is the most perfect medicine in this world. I love the medical framing here.
It changes the paradigm again. If you are a sinner, you need a judge. If you are rusty, you need a fire. But if you are sick, you need a doctor.
And the text treats the ego, or the separation, as a disease.
Yes. And the medicine is very specific. It's the divine name, har, har, har.
Why the repetition, though? The text emphasizes har, har, Japan, Chau-Padhay, Reiti chanting day and night. Why isn't saying it once enough? Is it just rote memorization?
Think about the rust analogy again. The rust is constant. Entropy is constant. The world is constantly trying to oxidize you, to weigh you down with more ego, more desire, more fear. The rusting process never sleeps.
So you need a constant countervailing force.
Exactly. You don't take an antibiotic once and hope it clears a severe infection. You have to maintain the therapeutic level in the blood. Chanting day and night isn't about mindless repetition. It's about maintaining a vibrational frequency that keeps the rust from settling back in. It's active maintenance.
And what is the exact target of this medicine? The text is explicit, Hukamnama.
Ego is killed, or ego is conquered.
We're back to the weight. Hamai, the sense of separate self, is the density that made the stone sink in the first place.
It all connects beautifully. The medicine dissolves the ego. When the ego dissolves, the density vanishes. When the density vanishes, the stone changes nature. It becomes capable of floating.
There's an instruction here, too, on how to take the medicine. Irdari.
Enshrine it in the heart.
It's interesting that it doesn't say enshrine it in the brain or keep it in your notebook.
The brain is where the ego lives. The brain analyzes, categorizes, and separates. The heart is the center of integration. The medicine has to be swallowed. You can't just read the label on the bottle. You have to internalize the sound until it becomes part of your autonomic system, just like your heartbeat.
So we've undergone the treatment, we've been fished out of the water, put in the fire, and given the medicine. Now we arrive at the final verse, the conclusion. And the perspective shifts dramatically. We stop looking at the stone, and we look at the ocean.
The description of the divine in this final verse is massive. The words used are agam and agadbodh.
Agam means unapproachable, right? Somewhere you can't go.
And agadbodh means unfathomable wisdom, bottomless. And aparampar, limitless, beyond boundaries.
It's a stark contrast. In verse 1, I'm a little dense stone. In verse 4, the Creator is this infinite, bottomless, unknowable mystery.
The contrast is exactly the point. It emphasizes the absurdity of the stone trying to save itself. How can a finite stone comprehend the infinite ocean? It can't. The gap is simply too wide.
So what's the final move? If I can't comprehend it and I can't swim to it, what do I actually do?
You appeal to honor?
This is the line, Jen Nanak Pay Feburary, save the honor of servant Nanak. Unpack page for us.
Page is a feudal concept in a way. It means honor, status, or reputation. But in the devotional context, it's not Nanak asking for his own reputation to be saved.
He's not saying, don't let me look bad in front of the neighbors.
No, he's saying, I am your servant. I wear your uniform. If I sink, it reflects on you.
That is incredibly bold.
It's the boldness of intimacy. It's like a child saying to a parent, you have to hold my hand because you're my dad. It shifts the entire responsibility of salvation from the servant directly to the master.
You are the petit pavan, the purifier of sinners. That's your title. If you don't purify me, you aren't doing your job.
Essentially. But it's done with total humility, not arrogance. I am a sinking stone. You are the infinite life of the world, Jagjivan. The only way this works is if you maintain your honor by carrying me.
It's the ultimate surrendering of the burden. The weight is no longer yours to carry.
And that brings us full circle. We started with the feeling of heaviness, the burden of mistakes, the sack of stones. And we end with the realization that we don't have to carry it. In fact, we can't carry it.
The text provides a mechanism for relief, but it's not the relief of fixing yourself. It's the relief of letting yourself be held.
And letting yourself be processed. That's the catch. You have to be willing to enter the fire, the Sangat, and take the medicine, the name. You can't just ask to be carried and then refuse to let go of the rust.
That's the core takeaway right there. Grace is free, but it's not cheap. It requires the surrender of the very thing we protect most. Our ego, our rust.
Well said. It requires the bravery to be put in the fire.
As we wrap up this deep dive into Dhanaasaree, I want to leave you listening with a practical provocation. We talked a lot about the Sangat, the company we keep, being a purifying fire.
It's the crucible of change.
But we live in a world of echo chambers, where we usually surround ourselves with people who agree with us, who validate our rust. We like people who tell us we're right.
That's comfortable. That's room temperature.
Exactly. So here is the question for you today. Look at the 5 people you spend the most time with. Are they a fireplace? Do they provide the heat and friction necessary to melt away your ego and reveal the gold? Or are they just helping you paint over the rust?
That is a confronting question.
It is. But if you want to float, you might need to find a hotter fire.
Indeed. Sometimes the heat is the greatest mercy.
Thank you for diving deep with us today. From the sinking stone to the gold in the fire, it's been quite a journey. We'll see you on the next one.